Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. Well, we hope you had a great Christmas whilst we were all enjoying spending time with our friends and family. And all being merry, Rovers only took 1 point out of 9 from a festive fixture list that should have yielded more. The therapy sessions are back and early this week because we have the big one coming up. But let's get a recap first. It was nearly a knockout blow as Rovers stormed back after a poor start to the second half to nick a point off Sunderland at home on Boxing Day. Ohashi ends his drought, but the boy wonder Leonard stole the headlines with an equaliser at the death, and Rovers follow up the spirited fight back with a loss at home to Hull, which leaves players, management and fans frustrated. Mark, did you have a good Christmas? Let's start with that.
I did have a good Christmas. Mike, when you say we've got 1 point out of 9, are you including Millwall or are you preempting a loss at Leeds?
I'm including Millwall. I'm including the Millwall game. I'm not going a bit further because I see the Christmas period starting around that time. So,
yeah. Well, I got this, which I had as a kid, but it's a remake. So that was good. But we're recording this after the not so good. After, obviously, the whole game that was, well, I'm surprised I'm still awake after the first half. But the second half of the stuff of nightmares, weren't it? It was the Ghost of Christmas Past appeared on that one, I think.
I know, Mark, you're doing me a favour recording tonight. I love the fact you've got a beer in your hand. So have I.
It's needed.
I think we needed it today. This Christmas period is messing with everyone's time scales, including mine. So I appreciate you recording a day earlier, but I think it's going to work out well because we will put this out on Monday, so everyone gets an extra day. We do have 4 games to cover now, which is just shows how hectic that festive period is. 2 from the past, 2 in the future. You know, it's coming thick and fast. And it's not a great time to show some poor form, is it? But let's start with the Sunderland game. There was a bit more positive on that one. Let's whiz our way back on that. So first off, we'll play the reaction audio that we recorded straight after the game.
Yeah, pretty relieved at that one. Didn't think second half we were that good at all. I mean, just taking the first few minutes out where they got the 2 goals. I think for the rest of the half, we looked pretty lacklustre, and then we started to come back into it. And the golden boy, Harry Leonard, you know, we've been asking for him to get some game time, and he comes on, gets the goal. I thought Gay played okay as well. It was great to see Ohashi in that first half. But first half I thought we did really well. I thought we controlled the game, probably deserved a little bit more than what we got. Yeah, just relieved more than anything else after that one. And like I said on my tweet, I've always loved Pears, think he's a quality keeper, think he's heading to the top.
I think a draw's a fair result there, Mike. First half, we should have been outside. First 5 seconds second half, we should have been outside. And then their tactical shift at half-time, dropping Dan Neil onto Cantwell, pushing both wingers as far wide as they could. Absolutely ripped us apart. We couldn't get to grips with it. I will say it once again, Harry Leonard is far more chance of him scoring than Gay. Should be playing more. And I'm going to have to put some respect on that man's name, Ainsley Pears. Wow. Well done, Ainsley. On to Hull on Sunday. Let's go.
Okay, we'll ignore the Hull on Sunday thing just for now. Now you've had a chance to sit and relax and relive the game. Has anything really changed from your initial match reaction, or do you still feel like a point was deserved?
Nothing's really changed. I've watched it back because I'm sad. I thought it was a good game. It felt like that at the time. It felt like 2 decent teams. I actually came away from it thinking they're a good team, but also we are. I thought we're actually up there by merit now. We may well fall off. However, we're there on merit. This is not an early season fluke thing. The table's settled down now, and we are up there on merit at the moment. It was an interesting tactical battle. I thought when they dropped Dan Neil deeper in the second half, and he just stifled Cantwell, and he ended up dropping deeper, and they really gambled. They went high and wide with Roberts and the other winger, whose name's escaping me, but it's a bit irrelevant. And then they just absolutely ripped us apart, and we didn't really have an answer for that. I thought Owen Beck got exposed a little bit defensively. He was at fault for at least one of the goals. But I also think it came down to the fact that Travis wasn't on the pitch. So there was a point where Lewis Baker, as much as he did all right, it was quite a subtle point. But before the first goal, he was in midfield and he played like a number 10 or a more forward player would play. So the ball was bouncing around and he gambled that they were going to play a ball out wide instead of covering the chance that they would then break on our back four. And he'd done that, and they did break on the back four, and he'd done exactly the same for the goal. He got drawn in. Tronstad had to come across, which meant Beck probably shouldn't have made the decision to come and try and win the ball because he was never going to win it, but he did. And then there was a big gaping hole where Patrick Roberts just slotted in. But then, to be fair, I thought that was the toughest test Beck's had, and he didn't really have an answer to it defensively. I think he didn't know whether to go wide. We normally bring our fullbacks in within the width of the box. They exploited that, and Beck wasn't able to solve that within the game, which was interesting. It's the first time I've thought, actually, you're still young, you're still learning. It's not a criticism of him, but it was something I thought, ooh, Patrick Roberts is a wily character, isn't he, as well? And I think they just exploited him a little bit there.
Yeah, I didn't really feel like Sunderland were coming at us in that first half. They had their moments, obviously. But I felt like we was in control. Ohashi was great to be there to finish off, to break his drought. And I just thought that after that, we carried on, not necessarily controlling the game attacking-wise, but I didn't feel like we was under a hell of a lot of pressure. Then they started to come back into it. But yeah, I didn't feel like we was losing possession in the wrong places necessarily. I was quite happy with how we were doing things. And then whatever happened at half time, I think they were eating their Christmas leftovers, having a couple of beers, whatever. But when they came out for that second half, it was like a completely different side from both teams. I felt like Rovers were just really sluggish. Like you said, Beck was being caught out. Everything seemed to be coming down that right-hand side. It's like they tactically decided that was going to be their play, was hitting the wings, exactly like you said. And it got their two goals in quick succession. And it was that point where I was like, do you know what? We're now going to see what Rovers are made of. To go to have a half like we did in the first half, where like we said, we felt like it was more the momentum. They would say was more in our favour, to have a 1-2 punch very quickly to react as we did. I felt like we reacted quite well. Again, I'm going to get into this in the whole game. I felt like there was times where we looked quite tired and a little bit lackluster. There had been some changes tactically, you could see, especially obviously Gay coming on for Ohashi on the 60th minute. Hedges went off OCD and ACD. I've got OCD. That ACD. He came on and we started to look like we was starting to get some momentum back, and it did feel like it was only a matter of time before we would get some opportunities. Did you feel like we was going to get back into the game, or was you still a little bit apprehensive?
No, I think I did feel like we were going to get back into it. I was really pleased. I think first half performance was a good game if you're a neutral anyway, but it was a good game. And yeah, we should have put the game to bed. Certainly that first 10 seconds of the second half as well. But I just really enjoyed it. I thought Dolan was picking the ball up in that first half and was driving at them. It was quite interesting. Campbell's getting in and around Dolan, though, to stop him overplaying. He was almost taking the ball off him. But then Dolan fell off a cliff, didn't he, in the second half? He wasn't driving that ball anymore. We didn't really have an answer because Campbell was blocked off. They were pinning us back. So the fact that we weathered a big, and I know we conceded 2, but we weathered a big storm because that could have easily become 3, 4.
Yeah.
I was so pleased. I was pleased with Ohashi's goal. We've seen him score screamers. I wanted his goal to break the drought. Yeah, we wanted any goal, but I want it to be kind of a striker's finish where you think, that's the goal you could score loads of, because if you're in the right place, they drop to you. The kind of goal we see Leonard score, another really good striker's goal. We think, I like them because we create lots of chances like that where we get Britton down to the byline, he cuts it back. So there was loads and loads of positives, I thought, from that game. And character. Because you're right, they looked a little bit bereft of that belief for a bit when Sunderland were just bombarding them. And to show the character and the strength of mind to come back into that game and snatch it late on, I was really impressed with us. I thought, do you know what? They've got something about them, this team.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like the subs probably came about the right time. Lewis Baker, he was doing okay, as you said. I thought, like you said, Dowland was falling off a little bit. I think we're finding that with his game. He's not giving us that 90 minutes. Buckley came on, and Vyman. What do you think of Buckley in this game? Because there was people calling for him to start. Now, I know that he's come on in the game today, and I'm trying to isolate the two opinions. What did you think when he came on against Sunderland?
So I was pleased when he came on because Baker's legs just completely gone. He couldn't even play a 5-yard ball at that point. He came on and he had a horrific effort on goal from the edge of the box. But we see Campbell, and again, it's difficult to isolate the two games, but we see Campbell do that quite a lot as well. And we see Tronstad and Travis pass up the chance to shoot from there. I thought Booker did all right. I think he showed one or two bits of quality. There was one point where we'd penned them in late on when we were trying to get the goal. And he was on about the halfway line. And a little dummy, he's out into space and he just plays a lovely ball. He's just got so much quality. I just think if you can't find space for John Buckley somewhere in your team, there's a problem. But equally, I think there were a couple of occasions where he looked short of match fitness. And he looked a bit off the pace, but it was quite a quick game as well. So I just think Buckley's got something to offer, and we've got to find a way of utilising it because he's very, very different to Tronstad. He's very, very different to Travis, but he just gives us something, I think sometimes a bit of a care with the ball. Ironically, though, when he absolutely fluffed his lines, they've ended up running up the other end, haven't they, and very nearly scoring. Here's the pairs of save the day.
I was going to get to pairs in just a second, but let's talk about the equaliser. The atmosphere seemed really good the whole game. Obviously, there was a lot going on about Jude Bellingham being in the crowd and so on. But the atmosphere for a Boxing Day game, 25,000 people there, it just seemed like a real classic Rovers, Christmas game. And it was great that came in because, like we say, it was limbs everywhere. But for it to be Harry Leonard as well, one of our own kind of thing, to come in, the year he's had, and to have that poacher's finish. There was a couple of things in the whole game today that I loved to get where he was. It's that poacher, isn't it? It's that poacher's striker's positioning that you really want. And he was there and he took his touch, got the ball, and the keeper's got a hand to it. But you could just tell how much it meant to him, the crowd and everything. It's a shame it wasn't a winner. But if it can't be a winner, it might as well be a last-minute equaliser. What was the limbs like in the ground?
It was great. Like you say, obviously Jude Bellingham was there. Sunderland fans were giving it big licks before the game. They quietened down when we scored, and I thought we were quite loud. They were singing about Shearer more than I know we get criticised for singing about Burnley, and they do for us. All I really heard was their version of one of our songs, and then they were singing about Shearer, calling him, suggesting that he works in a bank. And that's
well. I'm glad you brought that up because I've got your response to it just here. Let's have a play. So I love the response to it. He's a hero of ours, isn't he? And
absolutely.
Yeah,
We
but it just
will
added to the
defend
atmosphere,
him.
though, doesn't it?
Of course it did.
It adds to the
Of course
atmosphere.
it did. You know, we play Newcastle and we sing about where did Shearer win the league. We play Sunderland and we stick up for him. It's quite funny. It had, obviously, it's Christmas game. Family are down. On that video that, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll have seen, the person who's about 18 foot tall in front of the camera is my nephew. And then my brother's son is down from Newcastle, from Whitladay. His other half of the family are all Newcastle fans. So there probably wasn't a Rovers fan more desperate for us to win against Sunderland. So yeah, he was suggesting a few songs. Apparently they sing things like they get a free season ticket and a Happy Meal and things like that. But we didn't go that far. But you have to defend Alan Shearer, Sir Alan Shearer, of course. But yeah, Leonard, great finish. Porcher, he gets those chances every single game he comes on the pitch. And he had one against Stoke and he didn't take it. He had one the other day, didn't he? And he didn't take it. And he's just got something that allows him to smell where the ball's going to drop. Or Hashi showed that in the first half, which was really pleasing. Because that ball does drop it in the box for us. It drops on the edge, and we've talked about Tronstad and Travis not having a ping, and I hoped Baker might do that. But it does drop in the box for us. Beck gets down the line, he can deliver a ball. One of our massive players is Britton, who does a half little dummy that I only ever used to see Graham Lassau do. Fake cross, down the line he goes, and he'll cross it back across the floor in the box. And usually there's nobody there, or Matt Targay is back heeling it to the back post. But in this game, there's Harry Leonard. And I must say, in the ground, there was a few groans about Gay. There was a few, oh, come on, go for that ball. You know, they're expecting him to go for every ball. It did feel a little bit like he was a bit reluctant to a couple of times. And then there was a bit of a comedy value when he went through on goal, when the whistle went about a minute before. Still decided to take the shot and then missed the target, which was, I'll be honest, pretty embarrassing for everybody concerned. But the assist, he didn't really get credit for in the ground. It was kind of like it hit him, and actually, I think he did really well from that. And you know, he's cranking those assists up, isn't it? And you can see why, when we've gone to a data-driven way of recruiting, why he's flashed up on the radar, because he's big and strong. He's not sluggish. He's getting the assists. I mean, he's only one goal in 2024 in the league, but you can start to see now why, on a data-driven model, Matt Targay appears quite high up the list. But yeah, it was all about Harry Leonard. He did exactly what we know Harry Leonard can do. And I do feel like I trust Eustace's decisions, so there'll be a reason why he's not playing him. But it's almost felt like we know Harry Leonard better than he does. Like, we know what he can do. You felt a bit like you're championing him as a supporter, saying, you know, give him a chance. You know, if you're going to put Gay on, there's not as much chance of a goal. We need a goal. Bring Leonard on. It's what he does. So I was delighted for him. I really was.
Yeah, I was. And you feel like Eustace is protecting him a little bit mentally and physically. You know, he's had a tough year. He's been playing quite a lot in the reserves. Sorry, I'm going to keep calling it the reserves. You know, so he's probably protecting him. And the fact that he's only getting a few minutes here or there shows that. And for him to get this equaliser was great. But the equaliser is only an equaliser if you can finish off the game. And like you said, there was a bit of an error by Buckley. The boy runs through, and Pears just makes an unreal save. It actually prompted our question of the week, which was, with Pears proving other doubters wrong, what Rovers player from history proved you wrong during their time at Ewood? Someone's actually put in about Gay, he's going to prove him wrong. But we'll get to that question later on. But yeah, it prompted us to have this conversation about Pears once again. But that save, what was beautiful about the save wasn't the fact that he made the save, because that was great, but it was the fact that he stood in his position. He knew exactly the time to pounce, and then he just did exactly what he needed to do. And that's what I loved about it. It was the patience, it was the movement of his feet. It was just a really, really good save. And once again, we're talking about Pears saving us in a game. Like they say, the keepers can't necessarily win your games. But when you do like something like that at the latter end of a game, where you have to time everything right, because you get it split second wrong, you're either giving away a penalty or it's a goal and it's whatever. he wasn't supposed to save that. The striker had all the time in the world. He was in control. Pears had no right to do what he did, and it was just really good goalkeeping. And the crowd celebrated it like it was a goal as well, which was great. And then the social media team at Blackburn obviously jump all over Pears once again, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Coming away from the game, everyone felt like a bit of a win. Like when you equalise at the end, it does feel like a win. But did you feel like we deserved maybe the win, or do you really think the draw was the right result?
No, I wouldn't go that far. I think the draw was the right result. I thought we controlled the first half, but I also think there was a spell in the second half where they had the best spell of the game. There was 20 minutes or so where it looked like they could score at will, and they'd score with every attack. And we never looked like that in the first half, did we? We just had quite a lot of control. But you're quite right, Ainsley Pears had a real moment there. So we had some good performances. We had a goal from Ohashi. We had Leonard's goal. And then right to top it off, we had Ainsley Pears serenaded by the Blackburn End as he went off the pitch. And I thought, this could be big, this game. Mentally, there's a lot of things we've ticked off here coming into a busy period. And yeah, I thought it's a good result for a number of reasons. More than just the point. There's a lot of individuals there that are going to come out of this game positive and with a mindset of money in the bank with themselves, where they can look back and go, oh, I remember when. So, yeah, it was... I know we're not talking about Hull yet, but it was then somewhat disappointing to see the first half at Hull, wasn't it?
Okay, well, let's start to move on to that whole game. But before we do that, most of the Rovers fans on the Twitter feed were saying it was a big point, not good in the second half, but well rescued. It was a great game to watch, very entertaining and a fair result over the balance of the game. I think Sunderland are one of the best teams in this league, and we dominated them in the first half, just didn't take our chances. Really happy for Leonard, deserves more starts. Sunderland fans have been commenting you should have been out of sight in that first half. We should have been in the second half. If ever there was a game of two halves, this was it. Point was a fair result, and two teams going at each other at the end. Good game. Another Sunderland fan said, Blackburn are one of the best footballing teams in this league in terms of the way you play and set up during games. You drive through opponents, midfield, and create space to counter-attack and hurt opponents like you did in the first half. All the best for the rest of the season. And I think when you're starting to get that kind of respect from other fans, it makes you realise the job that Eustace has done with the scraps that he's got. I mean, I don't want to call our players scraps. That's probably harsh. But, you've got so many teams up there in that playoff hunt that have been spending a ridiculous amount of money or already had a high-valued squad. And we've just got something that's been cobbled together from free transfers, loans and low-value signings. And he's got us playing and we're up there. So it was really pleasant to see some of these fans coming onto our feed and commenting. But was there any three-word reactions that were your favourites?
Yeah, so you're right. We had quite a lot of Sunderland fans coming on saying how, they thought that they should be seeing the game out, but against a really good Blackburn team. A point's a really good result. They were really impressed with Rovers. You don't normally get that. To be fair, I expected their reaction to be, how they lost the game or whatever. But as for three-word reviews, we've got here... Anthony Lynch quite like this. He's used brackets, so we'll allow it. The brackets obviously don't count towards the word count. Superb, average, and battered. But in the brackets, he's put superb 20, an average 25, and battered for 45. So, interesting. Never offside, robbed. Now, we've not touched on that. I haven't actually. I've seen the game, but I've not seen an angle yet where that tells me if he was or not. Now, what they referred to was that they'd said, so Dolan obviously put the ball, I mean, there was one where he missed an absolute sitter, but he put the ball in the net, didn't he? They said that the ball was played to him, but we apparently, I'm trying to remember it back now, we kicked the ball onto their player, and then it came to us, but they were saying it was a deliberate act from our player. So, the feedback I've had,
I'll be honest.
I'll
be honest. I'm struggling to think back to that game in detail because we have recorded straight after the whole game. I'm struggling to go back to it's all, especially the fact that they're both home games as well.
Oh, I know.
It's all merged into one.
Although they were chalk and cheese. Right, we had like Hughes' Rovers from Gareth Moore's. I love that because that's the comparison I've been seeing. I've been making comparisons about Owen Beck reminding me of Stephen Warnock for a number of reasons. But I started to see this with Eustace's team. I feared we'd become Allardyce's Rovers, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I think we are as close to Hughes' Rovers, obviously not in quality, but in terms of approach to games. But then the other one I have to say is from Joshua Birch, Super Ainsley Pears. Yeah.
What a difference a year or two makes, man. I still can't get over it. But we move on. Just going to have that quick one-word answer from you. Happy with the performance?
Yeah.
It's a yeah from me. It's a yeah from me because I think they're a very good side. And to take anything from Sunderland home or away is very good. So we moved on to the Hull game, which was today. When you're listening to this, hopefully it was yesterday. So, yes. First off, weather was awful. The team, there was a few changes for both sides. Hull fans didn't seem too happy about the changes on their side. But that first half, mate, I mean, I thought that the game looked like there was two teams that just lacked energy. Did you get that feeling?
Yeah, it was snowballing into one of them where you just wishing half-time arrives early and that there's no damage. I don't think it's a mentality thing in terms of that Rovers have come into the game thinking, we don't need to put the effort in. It just felt that the tempo was completely wrong in the game. Both teams, that is. It didn't feel like it was a lack of Rovers feeling like they needed to play at a tempo. It just felt like that's where the game was at. It was a bit of a...
Yeah.
I mean, the attendance was okay. Rovers had sold out the Jack Walker pretty much. Blackburn End was pretty much full. Riverside was okay. Hull brought, I'm going to guess, at about 1,500. But the atmosphere was completely different. So it did have that sort of...
attendance was 16,000. So it's a big drop-off from the Boxing Day game, isn't it?
And it felt like that. There was, the weather was freezing. It was, weather app before I set off said it felt like 1 degree. It was raining. You just sort of came and it was almost like a New Year's Day game can be sometimes where the atmosphere was a bit... Rovers fans were just singing about Burnley. That's all everyone's mind is.
I was just about to say, the thing is I think fans have come away from the high of the Sunderland game. We've got some big games coming up and this one is sandwiched in between the two. And I'm going to say it, I think there is an element of arrogance, me included, where I felt like this game was going to be one where we're at home. We should easily control this game. We should easily get something out of it. We can basically put ourselves in cruise control and at least get a point, maybe two. But I mean, it was only a few hours ago for us. But let's just quickly play the match reaction, then we'll get into the nitty gritty of it.
Well, mate, with about 16 minutes to go or so, I was thinking to myself, this is going to be a cracking week. Point off Sunderland. We're probably going to go on and win this one. Get the 4 points, move on. But wasn't to be. I thought Hull finally showed some quality and got their goal. Can't complain too much about that one. But we just looked absolutely shattered. The lads just seemed to just give up in the last 15, 20 minutes. They just seemed like they were dead on their feet. We managed to get some quality now and again, making some chances. I mean, the amount of times they were blocking them and stuff like that, it was like they were Rovers and we were the team trying to break them down. But yeah, frustrating one. We'll break it down in the pod.
Mikey boy, how are we? That was crap weather, crap game, crap performance. One of those days we put it down as, but first half there was not much for either team. It was just pretty poor. Because Jude was probably the bright spot. Then he faded in the second half. We created some chances. You've got to take them. And then you did put that points in the bag and said, "Oh, let's move on. We won't know them sort of games last season." Cantwell puts it to the other side of the post. Instead, sucker punch. It happens. Let's move on.
Two very downbeat fans there. It's pretty hard to stay positive. We are fifth in the league, and we are happy about where we are and what we're the fact that we're even sniffing playoffs is brilliant. But we're taking these as isolated games, and when you come away from a game like that, you are disappointed. So that's why we do sound a little bit down. We're not super negative fans, but I loved what you said there at the end, Mark, about it happens. It does happen, and that's football. If we won it all, we'd be champions of England within a few years. So it's we need to be realistic. I came into this game and I did feel like it was inevitable that we would get at least a point, probably a win. And that just was my feeling of how we've played against Sunderland, the fact that we'd lost against Millwall. And it was just a bit of a kick up the arse to then get the late equaliser was the shot in the arm, and it was going to come into this game. Hull weren't going to want it, but new manager and everything. They just stifled us every way. There was bodies on the line. And that's what I meant with my comment. I didn't articulate it very well, but when I said Hull, it was like Hull were Rovers. I mean, the way that Rovers have been playing, bodies on the line and everything, they probably looked at us and thought, that's how we need to play. I mean, that's very arrogant of me to say that anyone would look at Rovers and say that's how I want to play. But
but you're right, because
that way.
There's nothing that Rovers have been doing recently that other teams can't replicate, and we're more than what we are individually. So you're absolutely right. It's not arrogant. I think you're right. We appreciate what we're doing at the moment.
But did you feel like the team were tired? Do you feel like they were knackered? Because that first half, I mean, talk about drab.
I do think there was a mental thing in terms of, I don't think it was deliberate. I don't think it was even subconscious that we're being complacent. But I think there was that kind of, it's a game nobody needed. There were supporters that have looked at these games and gone, well, I want to go to the Boxing Day one. I won't mind going Leeds away. I want to go to the Burnley game. So some fans hadn't bought tickets today. Some had that are down, and hence that Rovers had a better home attendance than they've had recently. There was a few season ticket holders, I think, that probably haven't come today. But it felt like the players were a bit maybe hard to get up for the game a little bit. But what I would say is, if we were going to sit and describe a team and an approach from an opposition that we would struggle with, it would be the approach Hull took. I think we are at our best when teams are coming at us, when they don't respect us, when they are potentially dominating possession. I think is a particular strength of ours, when we can sit back and just pick it off. And I understood why he started Cozy Dewberry. I thought Cantwell in the 10 would be really important today. I thought Dolan would be really important. And I was surprised with Gay, if I'm being honest, because I didn't think they were that physical. All I could think is that maybe he'd spotted a weakness in them from set pieces, or he's just trying to give Ohashi a rest because he's going to need him for the next two. Maybe. But
I think that's what it was. I think he's looking at the 4 games of Sunderland, Leeds, Burnley, and obviously Hull, and he's thinking this is the game I can maybe put on, not a second string team, but
you're right.
make your changes.
Yeah. If you're looking at the 4 as a whole, and you've got to manage us, you've got to manage the squad, if you're going to rotate, you've had a game at home against Sunderland, no travel. You've had another game at home against Hull. And then you've got an away game at Leeds, again, not much travel. And then you've got the Dingles. Big games, shorter space of time. The one out of them that you would go, I can probably, if I'm going to have to do here in some point, before I'm forced to and someone gets injured, I could probably going to do it in the Hull game. I actually thought there might be more. I thought we might see Vyman. I thought we might see JRC, because for me, Callum Britton needs to play in the next 2 games. And he looked knackered by the end of the game because he's such an important part of our attacking play. And Hull kind of set off us and went, go on then. And we've seen us dominate the ball, haven't we, before? We've seen us do it against Cardiff. We struggled with that today. We didn't move it anywhere near quick enough. But it does happen, Mike, and I've just got the scores in front of me from today. And I know it's all about us, but it happens. Stoke City beat Sunderland. All right, that's away. But Stoke have been diabolical, and they've beaten Sunderland, who we've just talked about. You've got Watford at home have lost to Cardiff. Very similar result. So it does happen. You're playing 4 games in this space of time. It's going to be very, very difficult. That's why the Championship is what the Championship is. There's loads of games where there's not pretty football and you've just to get over the line. We've managed to do that in this spell. What is it? 1 defeat in 8 before today. We've managed to do that more often than not. We should have done it today, but we didn't. So it's difficult to take it just in isolation. I think you take it as a big bunch of games. I listened to Mark Atkins on the radio on the way home, and he said, you've got to just take this as a season as a whole. And this is the midpoint of the season, isn't it? We played 23 games now, and we have got, let's have a look at the points. Championship table. I'll bring it up in a second. My point was, if you could bring how many we've got, Mike. I doubled it and looked at the end of the season with 38. So very quick maths. It's not my strong point. 76 points. That would see us finishing 5th at the end of the season, according to last year's table.
Well, that's the thing. If I said to you at the start of the season, at the midway point, you're going to be 5th in the league. You're going to be okay. You know, you're going to be close. But we're 5 points off. Hang on. 5 points off 9th. We're 8 points off mid-table, and that's where we said we'd be happy with. We've got 8 more points there. I mean, like we try and be realistic fans, me and you. We try not to get too high. We try not to get too low. We take when we review or preview each game, we take that game in isolation, and then when all said and done, we then have a conversation about the grand scheme of things, the bigger picture. And the bigger picture at the moment is, yes, I'm disappointed today because I felt like it was a game we should have won. But I only felt like it was a game we should have won because we're 5th and they were, I think, 23rd or something before starting the game. Well, there were some, there or thereabouts, maybe, but it's like, as far as I'm concerned, today was a game where I looked at us, we looked tired, and the obvious thing for me was just depth of the squad. Weimann doesn't seem like he's playing very well at the moment. He seems extremely tired, even though he hasn't exactly had a lot of minutes. I thought Buckley came on and was, I'm not going to say he was poor, but I don't think he was very effectual. Don't get me started on the free kicks he put in at the end. But just going back to that first half, I made notes throughout the game just on my phone, and I think I made like 4 notes for the first half. The first one was goes to Dewberry, great run and a good block on the 30th minute, and he just looked like he was the outlet from the start. The other note was Dolan needs to be more like goes to Dewberry, and then I did make one negative note, and the one real negative note was we kept giving the ball away at the back, and we was getting very, very lucky. So we was playing out at the back, and to start with, it felt like they were just letting us play around, mess around, and if you want the ball in your box, just have it. And then they started to cotton on that if they just pressed a little bit, we weren't moving the ball that fast today. It seemed like the ball, like Pears and the defenders, they just didn't seem to be shifting the ball and getting it out into that second and third level like they were. And we got away with it now and again. And there was a couple of times where actually we gave it away, and Pears gave it away, I think, in the second half, and had to make his. No, it was in the first half where he gave it away and then had to make a save straight away. He was getting very, very sloppy, and we was getting extremely lucky. And I think they cottoned on quite quick that we were just not at the races today. And I'm not going to say it was arrogance from the Rovers' point of view. It just really felt like a game that they weren't bothered about. They don't have much time to really prepare for each game during this period. What training would they have had between the Sunderland game and this? It's next to nothing. They might have taught some tactics, but not actually on the pitch. So to go into this game, they didn't look prepared. They didn't look ready. Hull cottoned on quite quick that if they just pressed us, they were going to get opportunities. And they were exactly how we were. They got disciplined out of possession. As soon as they lost the ball, they were all back and bodies on the line, and that proved it in the first half. And then second half, we had chances, but it just didn't go our way.
No, I thought Dolan was awful in that first half. I thought he was at his, I'm going to say his best against Sunderland in the first half. He was turning with the ball and he was driving at them, and still loads to work on from him. But he was effective. He was very ineffective today. There was one time where he found Beck with the ball, but I think someone kicked it against him and it went to Beck. He was just non-existent today. I don't know what was up with him. He was everything. When you get frustrated with him and talk about him needing to simplify his game, it was everything that wasn't today, wasn't it? It was everything that frustrates us about Dolan today. But he wasn't alone in that. Pears was getting sloppy, and it looked a bit like Pears had kind of gone, oh yeah, by the way, I am the man. And they managed to get away with it by half-time. And I thought at half-time, they're going to go in, it's 0-0, no damage has been done, but not a bad thing, this. They're going to get a right kick up the rear, they'll come out second half and turn it on. And there was that to an extent. They tried to up it a little bit. They moved the ball a little bit quicker. There was a point where Beck got down the line, played it to Cantwell, and Cantwell, he's just tried to be too precise, but how he's not scored he is going to score them, isn't he? If you give him 10 of them, he'll score. Well, actually, we've seen him on that YouTube video. Maybe he won't, but there's lots of things Todd Cantwell does well, but he does need to improve his finishing. Then you've got the one that went back to Beck. There was one that kind of dropped to Gay a little bit. There was a few.
Can I just interrupt you there? Sorry, Mark. Going back to Cantwell, he's got quite a bit of pelters on social media, and there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's back to his Rangers form. His head drops when things don't go his way, and he seems quite petulant." Did you see any of that?
No, I think that's bang out of order. There was a point where late on, the ball we'd sort of started to press towards their left back. And Cantwell was in the 10 role, and they'd overloaded us, and then they played it, still quite slow, don't get me wrong, but they played it across to the keeper, and they were out at the right back. There was no way Todd Cantwell was going to get to this right back. But he's pressed at one side, he's come across, he's got his head down, and he has pressed the right back, and didn't quite get there, but he was never going to get there, but still made the effort to do it. If he was ever going to be this flair player who doesn't give a toss, that was it. And actually, the Blackburn End really applauded him. It was, and he wasn't doing that for the Blackburn End to applaud him. He was doing it because that's what you do at Blackburn Rovers. So no, I think that's bang out of order. There was a few times where for a player with such good technique, his shooting technique, and I don't just mean the one where he put it wide. I mean on the edge of the box where he doesn't connect with the ball well at all when it's on the ground or in the air. And he's the player that you would almost bank on that. And he's quite poor at that, to be fair. Surprisingly so for a player with such good technique. But no.
You're definitely going to see him get more assists in his time here than goals.
It's something he's got to add. I think he's going to look at the end of the season, and I wouldn't be surprised at the minute if he ends the season with 5 assists and 5 goals. 5 goals and 5 assists, maximum. However, that doesn't tell the whole story with Todd Cantwell, to be fair. We'd say that with Dolan, and I think it does tell the story sometimes with him, other than he is starting to drive. But if you rewind a goal 5 seconds, you'll see Todd Cantwell do something in that nobody else on our team could have done, whether he's directly involved in the goal or it's a pre-assist, as they call it now. Or quite often he's picking the ball up and he just dinks it round the corner very, very quick, and it opens the pitch up for us. That's not going down as an assist, but that is actually Todd Cantwell playing a key role in that. So he might not have the numbers that we will be eye-catching. And I think he should, because a player of his quality should be getting more goals, should be scoring today, should have got a couple more against Leeds. But the last thing I would actually say is that he wasn't working hard. So no, give him pelters for his technique on the half volley and things like that, and not scoring that chance. Yeah, because I think he'll be beating himself up tonight. But for not working hard, absolutely not. I will defend him to the hilt for that, particularly today. I thought it was commendable today, because if you didn't want to, you could have got away with that, and he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anything from it. I'm seeing glimpses of Schmodix in him with certain things, glimpses of Dak with others, and let's be honest, Cantwell could be way better than both of those players if it clicks with him. I completely agree. I mean, I just knew it wasn't going to be our day when he missed that chance.
Yeah.
I'm off my seat. I'm thinking it's going in, and it goes wide, and it's the classic saying, it was harder to miss, because they were throwing players all the time. I mean, they had so many players, because, I mean, their keeper wasn't exactly making a load of saves. It was the defenders. It was very much a Rovers performance in that front. And they were just throwing players and stuff. And I thought, someone's nicked it wide. And then when he said it was a goal kick, I'm like, how the hell has he done that? Like, that was harder to do, because it was great play by Beck, great play by Ohashi. And then as soon as it went wide, I thought, this isn't going to be our day. And to be fair, after that, we were taking control a little bit, and the right wing was just available. Koza Dubry was having a great game. He was getting opportunities. I mean, could he have scored that first one in the first half? I mean, it was a good block, but I might want to get a bit more out of him there. But yeah, I felt like it was really coming our way. And then Hull finally showed some good quality, and they broke us down. And I felt like at the time it was against the run of play, but it was a good goal. I can't necessarily point fingers at anyone in particular to say they did something absolutely egregious. But it was the first bit of quality they showed, and it just got them a goal, didn't it?
Yeah, I think on the Cantwell one, just to finish, he tried to be too precise, didn't he? I've seen interviews with Shearer where he said his coaches at sort of 16, 17 said, put your head down. You know where the goal is. It doesn't move. Hit it as hard as you can and aim for the keeper. And 9 times out of 10, you'll score. And Cantwell did exactly the same, different finishes, but the same as Dolan did the last game. Dolan tried to hit the top corner. Cantwell tried to hit the bottom corner today. Don't be that precise. You don't need to be.
Which is weird you say that, because I watched him in the warm-up and he was smashing them.
Yeah.
And he was doing exactly what you just said. So it's like, just do that in the game, mate.
It was a strange one. I mean, Harry Leonard hit the keeper, didn't he? Literally hit the keeper against Sunderland, and then it went in. But yeah, I mean, Lottie was watching the game, and she turned around to me, and it was about 60 minutes, and she said, "We're going to lose 1-0." And everyone's like, "Well, shut up!" But she was like, "We are." And she's like, "Put a bet on, Dad." I was like, "Absolutely not." But yeah, it started to have that feeling, didn't it? That it certainly wasn't going to be our day. I mean, I've looked stats here. Their keepers made 2 saves. It's not enough. We had 14 shots. There was a lot of blocks, but they had a higher expected goals than us. But yeah, we've had the same big chances. It just, it was one of them days. It happened.
Yeah, because
I'll be honest.
When they scored, did you feel like we were going to react? Because actually, for the first time in ages, I didn't feel like we reacted too well after conceding the goal.
We didn't. I actually thought if anyone was going to score, it was going to be them. I thought they started to pile it on. It sparked them into life, whereas it should have sparked us into life, really. We got urgency in the 86th minute or something when Leonard came on. Not just because he came on, but all of a sudden we started to play with a real urgency. But yeah, it does happen, this. I'll be honest, I thought they exploited Owen Beck a little bit again. I think they played down that side. I think his defending and his defensive abilities just starting to go, I think there's stuff to work on. But that's only because he's played so well. You know, he's on loan for a reason, isn't he, at the moment? But I think the point you made a little bit earlier was absolutely spot on. There's not much time between these games to tactically set yourself up. And it's a very different game, is Hull at home, to Sunderland at home, Leeds away, Burnley away. They're not, there'll be nuances around those that are different, but they're not dissimilar games. The opposition will have a lot of the ball. There'll be tight games. There'll be loads of action. There'll be, tackles. It'll be big atmospheres, all these kind of things. The approach that we'll take, the approach they will take will be subtly different, but they're not dramatically different. So when the team are doing bits on the training field about patterns of play, they won't be dramatically different. Hull is massively different. They're wanting you to come on to them. And it's all right telling players what you want them to do. And right, lads, need you to move the ball quicker. They're going to sit in a low block. And yeah, there's an element where we probably do that in training a little bit. So they should have some practice of it. But it's another thing trying to do it on the pitch. And if we'd have come away from that game 1-0 winners, Cantwell's goal would have gone in, you'd have gone, yeah, there wasn't much in that game. Let's move on. It's fallen the other side of it. It happens. We talked about it the other day when it was Millwall. We've had 5 of them or so that have fallen in our favour. 2 now haven't. It can happen.
Well, like you said, it happens. That's football. It swings and roundabouts. Some go for you, some go against you. I think we've had plenty of results go for us this year that shouldn't have done. It does happen. I mean, other notes I made. I mean, the thing is just before the goal, I did think to myself, we're going to go on because we had that good spell. We're going to get a goal, and we're going to be talking on this podcast about 4 points out of 6, and we're going to say how well we've reacted from that Millwall game and how well we're going into the next 2 games. And it was all rosy, and then Hull get that goal. We don't react well. They hit the post. They had a goal that I don't think was even offside ruled out. So really it should have been 2-0. And if it was 2-0, we'd be talking completely differently, because I will be talking about the fact that it was a capitulation from us when we had that start of the second half at Sunderland, and then the spell here where it would have been some quick goals against us again. But we did have another opportunity on the counter-attack. But like I said, we just looked so knackered. We looked so slow. It came to Cantwell, and I felt like it was a silly ball from Cantwell to put through Vyman, because Vyman was about a mile offside, and he's decided to play him through. And it's like, just be sensible with the ball. If we've slowed it down, I mean, I could be being harsh, but I just felt like he should really have known that Vyman, I mean, like I said, hasn't been playing great, but Vyman had put himself in an offside position because the player had slowed down a little bit. Just hold it up and let's reset. But he played the ball and he was quite far off, and then we started to peter out again, and then Hull. That's when I think Hull hit the post, and then we finally get an attacking free kick. We actually have 2, and Buckley, and my note is Buckley, terrible ball from a dangerous free kick. He hasn't been the best. That was my feeling, because he couldn't even just swing it between the penalty spot and the edge of the area, or just put it on the penalty spot. But he couldn't even reach the goal, the edge of the 18, and it was just silly. And I think he ended up having to pull him down. Was that the moment he had to pull him down and take his yellow? And then we did it again later on. And it was just one of those days where we looked tired. They were blocking on. I think they had another block on the line at the last minute. But I came away and I was like, do you know what? This is one to forget about. And it's rare that we have one at home like this. But it was a shame. It's a shame. I just hope that we react well from this. But my opinion, I think we're right in what we're saying about not training properly for this game and not being able to prepare for it. But I do think it was tiredness. They just looked tired, and the only player that didn't look tired was Koza Jude.
I thought Koza Jude had a great first half. I thought he showed something, a little bit of an X factor that we've not seen. I did think he tired. And then that's why he ended up coming off. And I think that's when we lost a bit of momentum. But on the Cantwell one, I mean, obviously it's a very, very different standard I played at. Very different. But I've seen players do this before. And Cantwell didn't have the legs to run beyond that defender. And he knew he didn't have the legs to run beyond that defender.
Hmm.
And I think it was a pass in the book. I think he thought, I'll lay this off. He could be offside, but it won't look like
But that's
it.
where I'd want him just to cut back. I know it's
I know.
frustrating, but I just want him to cut
I think
back.
he's played it thinking he might not be offside, but at least I'm not exposed for a lack of pace or whatever. That was a selfish move, actually, looking back.
Because the ball had come over from the left. It goes to him, and
counter attack.
It felt like that. Yeah, and it felt like the ball from the left shouldn't have actually gone to Cantwell. That probably should.
I was just going to say that was the first error. It should have gone to Weimann.
Yeah.
And I fancy Weimann. He's the one player in our squad that if he's through on goal, I expect it to be a goal. Some of the other players, I would say, is 50-50. Some of the others, I'd say 60-40 in the other team's favour. But Weimann, I would expect to score in that sort of position. But yeah, I thought we're not going to get carried away with it in terms of it being awful. But it could well be a blessing in disguise, this. It could be that they go and they get a kick up the rear and we say, listen, we are not good enough to play at that tempo. We have to play at a higher tempo. But I do think that we've given teams a little bit of a blueprint here because I think they exposed us in the fullback areas because we like to play nice and narrow. And the way you exploit that is move the ball really fast and play high and wide. And I also think that they drew our defenders higher up the pitch. And the two centre-halves, Dom Hyam, I think, has been really good. It was interesting he moved to the left-hand side of centre-half today and then swapped back over at half-time. Don't know what that was about. But the two things that him and Bat, as good as they've been, do not like is a ball in behind. And we ended up creeping up the pitch because of the way the game was going. So I don't expect that to be the case against Leeds. I think that they'll be back to most of the play will be in front of them. I just hope that Burnley don't exploit that because if I was them, what I would be doing is saying, let that team come on to you because they ain't got the quality to break you down if you sit in and we will annihilate them on the counter with the pace we've got. That's my fear. I know we'll talk about that another day, but I think Leeds won't. I think Leeds are arrogant as a team, as a club. I think Leeds will just carry on. I think they look at the way they play. I think that's what Daniel Farke does. He looks at the way they play and just tries to get better at that. Fine. They've got lots of quality. I think Scott Parker, as much as I dislike him, does adapt to the opposition a little bit more. So I'm a little bit concerned about what I've seen the last two games tactically from that perspective.
Well, let's just finish off the whole game and actually get on to those previews. So the fans on X, most of us are saying the same. I put they look knackered. James put didn't deserve anything from that onto the next. Thomas put only themselves to blame today. Comes down to missed chances that should have been buried. Aaron's long-time listener. It's effing Hull. Yeah, it was, and they managed to get one over us. Ewood Rover, tough match after a tough period on to the next one. Other results mean that the table around us is unchanged. In Eustace, we trust. So we're still fifth in the league. Results went our way. It's one of those games we just move on from. But was there any 3-word reactions out yet? Because we are recording this quite early.
Yeah, I'm having an absolute shocker with my mic, so I'm going to apologise. I've got Andrew Morrison says, so it begins. I'm presuming he means the Christmas slump. But then we had people saying that after the Millwall. Tim DYO, New Year reset. Well, I'll take that, Tim. Yeah, we'll have that. And then we have got Andy, nothing up front. And Craig Latham, are you a striker? I think he wants one.
I think we all do. So, one word answer, was you happy with the performance today?
No.
Neither was I. So, let's move on. So, that's 2024 completely done with. We now move on to 2025, new year, new Rovers. So, the first one is Leeds away. Now, Leeds away, it's been the place we've been to. We've got some results from. Obviously, there was the big one with last year that, basically was limbs with us and frustrated a lot of fans. We tend to do okay, but we've got to react from this game. So moving on to the Leeds game, Mark, how are you feeling going into this game on New Year's Day?
I'm all right. I think the Leeds game suits our squad at the moment a little bit more. I think anytime you go to Welland Road, if we're being perfectly honest, they are a very good team. The atmosphere can get at teams, it can affect teams, but it didn't affect us last year. I think the one big difference last year is obvious. We had Sammy Smodics to take the one chance we had. We don't have that player, so that's one concern. But we should take full confidence from our performance against Leeds at Ewood. We did not just sit back. It wasn't like we did at Elland Road last year. We just sat back. We said, right, try to get a point from this game minimum. If we can snatch it, snatch it. But we didn't do that at home. I thought we were the better team. There's obviously a bit of needle there because Joe Roden decided to say that we parked the bus. And there was a few little niggles from Leeds. I thought we deserved the win. I thought we were the better team. I don't think it'll quite be like that. I think we'll go into it and they will dominate the ball. We'll soak it up a bit. That suits us. I'm fine with it. And we know that Hull aside, generally, we've done really well against teams from Yorkshire. So the fact we've got two more teams from Yorkshire coming up in the next two games is what you would want, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's interesting looking at this Leeds game. I'm just looking at the scouting report on whoscored.com, and it said Leeds' weaknesses are at aerial duels, where it's one of our strong points. But it does say that they're very good at counter-attacks. But interestingly, it says Leeds' style, non-aggressive. I've never known that from a Leeds side. They're normally quite aggressive. And that people play very aggressive against them, and it actually has Blackburn style as aggressive. I didn't think we were an aggressive side, so I'm not too sure if we can take this seriously. Do you feel like this is a game where we need to rotate and just take whatever happens ready for the Dingles game? Because I do think we are tired. I do think there's a lot of mental and physical issues going on with our team at the moment. We've had a couple of injuries. We've lost Travis. Beck on the left wing was really good, and now he's having to go back to left back. And like you say, he's been found out the last couple of games. Do you think this is one where we just need to sit back and hope for the best and have maybe have a couple of changes that feed into that?
I think we would have some changes, but I don't quite know what we do. There isn't an obvious solution to give Beck a rest. Do you play Hedges there? Not really fancying that. The centre halves, I think will be okay because I think they'll slot back into where the game's in front of them. I go back to the Harry Maguire conundrum. Everybody obviously rated him at Leicester and thought he was a world beater. He's gone to Man United and everyone's gone, oh my God, what's happened to him? Well, nothing's happened to him. What's happened is that all of a sudden the team are asking him to play on the halfway line instead of pretty much the edge of his box. You look at Sean Dyche, he goes into Everton, they can't stop conceding goals for fun. And, well, he's got Tarkowski, he's got Michael Keane, he's got these players, what's up with them? He's not turned them into world beaters all of a sudden again and really good defenders. He's just said, your strengths are when everything's in front of you and not running back towards your own goal. So the starting point is 10 yards further back. That'll be the case against Leeds. So that automatically makes us a little bit more comfortable. Do we rotate? I'd like to see us do a little bit. I think there's a little bit of tiredness from some of them. There's a little bit where we don't have a replacement for Lewis Travis. And I'm not saying Lewis Travis is the absolute pinnacle of midfielders, but I do think you'll struggle to find a better championship midfielder right now. And he's actually the one player in the team, like we said last time, that we don't have a like-for-like replacement for. I think we're missing Harry Pickering. I think Harry Pickering is the better of the two with him and Beck defensively. But I also think we're missing him because Owen Beck on that left-hand side is probably our best left winger and naturally allows us to slot him into left back and Pickering slots perfectly into centre half. So if we're under the cosh, even within a transition, we become a 5 and we're so solid then. And we're missing that combination. So there's a few key cogs there that's missing, and we knew it would hurt us, and it is. But ultimately, it comes down to squad depth. We don't have the level of quality. And the people who are coming in, like Vyman, we know what their strengths are, we know what their limitations are, but they're also a bit short of match fitness. So you can't really just go and throw them in. I mean, it's a big ask, isn't it, of Ohashi and of these players in general, because I think it'll be a very similar team we'll play in both games. It's going to be some mammoth effort. But I do think the way that the game will set up will help us a little bit. I think it'll be more in our favour in terms of how we like to play and how we exploit teams. The onus is not on us to take the game to Leeds. If we come away from that game and it's 0-0 and it's a drab affair, we'll all be relatively happy. So,
I completely agree. I mean, looking at the Leeds fixture list now, the recent results, they haven't exactly been playing, top opposition. With all due respect, they've just beaten Derby, who's 16th, Stoke, who are 18th, Oxford, who are 20th. They drew with Preston, who are 14th. Middlesbrough is probably obviously sick. They beat them back in early December, 3-1. So it's not like they've been playing fantastic opposition recently, but they're top of the league. They are a very, very good side. They're very, very well drilled. I just want us to go into this game in mind of the game after. I don't want us to take too many risks. If the risks are there and you feel like the game's there to be won, I'm more than happy to do that. But these games, they're just coming at the wrong time for us. And I want us to make a good account of ourselves in this game, but I just want us to come out of it unscathed, ready for the game after.
Yeah. I think we're dreaming if we think we're going to rotate with Burnley game in mind. But I think Rovers fans probably would. I think all of our weaknesses of the squad are coming to the fore, and it's nobody's fault. The board needs to go and they need to back Eustace. He's already asking and making noises about that. There's not enough quality of depth, is there? I don't know what more Eustace could have done the last couple of games. He's bringing people like Matt Targain to the team, and right now he's not up to the standard. Whether he comes up to the standard, fine, but right now he's not. You're looking for a goal and you're thinking, well, why is he not bringing Harry Leonard on earlier? Maybe could he have started Harry Leonard? He's not going to be up to 90 minutes. There's obviously a reason why he's not. And I think the debate between the fans was, we need to go and sign a striker. Okay, what do you want from the striker? We need to be able to score goals. Okay, well, I get that, and we'd all love that. But we've spoken loads of times that you can get lucky, and you can find an absolute gem from nowhere. A £300,000 Rudy Gestede would be nice, but it's very unlikely. So you're going to have to pick what attributes you want. Now, we picked the attributes we gave. We wanted a big unit who will run in behind, decent in the air. Okay, whether you think he's up to that or not, that's what his attributes will have been pinging up as. Ohashi works really hard, can score some good goals. Doesn't look like he's going to be prolific, but I think Ohashi will come into his own next season anyway. I think he's already had a full season, so there's all those reasons. But if you were looking in our squad and saying which striker is most likely to score you the most goals if he'd played all of them 46 games, I'd probably say Harry Leonard. So if it was just goals that Eustace was after, surely he would have started Leonard. All his weaknesses, surely if it was goals, he thought, that's what we're missing, he would have started him. And he didn't. So why is Leonard not getting the game time? If it's his, you would imagine he thinks he's maybe not physical enough. He's not enough football and IQ as a striker yet, holding the play up, using the defenders. Where should he be dragging them? All these kind of things will be coming into it. But this is what my point is. If we're going into transfer market, we are not signing somebody that can do the strengths of Ohashi, the strengths of Gain, and finish like Leonard. So I don't quite know what player we're going to go for. I absolutely agree. I think we need one. I think we need one, though, that's going to score. And where you find them, they are there. Preston went and got Tom Cannon on loan that time, and he did bag for fun. Cameron Archer came, but that was because Ryan Lawler was mates with Steven Gerrard. So I don't know who Eustace's mates are, but hopefully there's a few of them knocking around and we can grab an absolute world beater. But we're lacking pace, aren't we? Once Cozy Jude gone off today, you're looking around and thinking there's nobody here with pace. And that's the big thing for me. Sometimes it can open a game up even if the player's not the best, and we don't have that option. So that's what I would be going for. But I just think
that's the
it's
thing. If in doubt, you
run.
can knock it long and just beat them long and give them something to think about. And no one has to think about that against us. They can play a relatively high line and not be punished.
And Reda Kadra was pretty poor at most aspects of his game. I mean, he had this free kick where he could whip it in with pace, didn't he? Scored one against QPR and things. But actually, his all-round game was quite poor. But he was very, very quick. And he could carry a ball. And at the minute, we've only really Dolan that's carrying the ball up pitch like that. And then his final ball and his choice of final ball generally is poor. And the only other one is Cozy Dewberry. Looks like he's got a bit of that. But again, he's on loan for a reason. If he was making the right passes 1 or 2 times today, he should have got his head up. It's going to happen. If it was a finished article, he'd be at Brighton still.
No, exactly, and that's exactly the point that people need to realise with loan players. Same with Beck. If they were top quality, top league ready, they wouldn't be with us right now. They're here to get the experience, and you can see these glimpses with these players. But ultimately, that's all it is. Sometimes you get a Harvey Elliott that just absolutely blows you away. You get yourself a Van Heck and so on, and we fall in love with these loan players. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, we need to talk about the transfer window. There's a great question in the mailbag from Tim DYO that to do with it's like a snog, marry, avoid. Who would you sign a contract to? He said. So we'll get to that one, Tim. But today this podcast is mainly about the games coming up, and there's a big one coming after the Leeds game. So let's talk about them both together a second. Now, this is a rhetorical question. I don't expect you to answer it, but I think Eustace is going to look at these 2 games and decide which one's more winnable than the other. And I think that he's probably going to see the Leeds game as one which he can sit back at and potentially try and get something out of, but come out of unscathed. And he might actually see the Burnley game as the one that is the more winnable. The fact it's at home, he's going to have the crowd behind him. It's a sellout crowd. So I think that he's going to hopefully set himself up to then come into this Burnley game and effectively go for it. Do you think we're going to see a tactical difference from when we played them at their place to how we're going to play them now?
Yeah, I think we really went at them at home. Dolan was particularly effective in that first half, if you remember, buzzing around, carrying the ball forward. I think we might adopt, whether personnel as well, maybe it's a Vyman comes in, almost a let's keep it tight and get to 60 minutes. And if we can get something before then, great. But let's just make sure we're in the game within the 60th minute, and then we'll open up a little bit. Then Cozy Dewberry comes on, then maybe Dolan, if he's not started, comes on. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see Ryan Hedges and Andy Vyman out wide, for example. It wouldn't.
How important is this game to the fans right now?
Had we been playing Hull on the Saturday after and nobody today, very important. New Year's Day, nice local game, and away following. Great. In the context of the season, if you lose away at Leeds, we've beaten them at home. We beat them away last year. You could lose away at Leeds. So in the context of a season, it's not going to define our season. The fact that we've then got that lot down the road on Saturday, I couldn't give a hoot. And it worked. If it didn't work and it backfired, it would obviously have repercussions. But if you could guarantee me now we switched all 11 players and got pumped 6-0, and then we went and beat Burnley, I'd take it right now. So, yeah.
I think this is a great opportunity for us to play them. I know we've come out of a relatively bad run, but that was following a very, very good run. I believe that out of all the times we've played them previously, this is probably I don't want to use the term confident, but this is one of the only times where I'm going into the game, I'm not as apprehensive, I would say. Previously when we played them, I've been very apprehensive. I've looked at the squad, I've looked at what we've had, and I'm just like, we just outgunned, we're outpowered in different positions, and I'm really concerned because they were on an upward trajectory and we was on a downward, and that we had that period of not playing them because they were gallivanting into the Premier League and stuff, but now we're back at the same level again, and I trust Eustace to make decisions. JDT, that game against them, he absolutely shit the bed with his decisions. I trust Eustace to make the right decisions in this game. He's played some pretty tough games himself in the past, and I think he knows what this means, and I think he's really going to set the team up exactly how he needs to. I think he's going to prepare for this Burnley game way more than any other game he's played because he realised how much it meant to us last time we played him and we only drew.
Yeah. I think against Leeds, he'll have the advantage of having their players. There'll be a bit of mental damage. They've lost a bit of quality. And, they've not got the likes of Somerville. They're still top of the league. But they've not got those individual quality where you think they could blow us away. That said, they probably will do now, and Patrick Bamford will go and get a hat-trick or something. But I think if we keep it tight against Leeds, Eustace, the fact that we've done it before will play on their mind a little bit, and it'll play on their fans' mind. I think looking at the Dingles game, they've not got the absolute quality that they once had. I think that's playing for us all to see. They're a little bit more resilient. They are not as expansive, but you could argue they're more effective. I do think Scott Parker adapts his game a little bit more. I think Company was a bit like Thomason in that he thought, well, this is how we're playing and we'll just get better at it, or we'll get better players in if we need to. Scott Parker has a base of the way he plays. He moves the ball around really slow, bit Russell Martin-esque. He's a bit arrogant in that sense of, this is the right way of playing football. And I'll be honest, I forget Burnley for a second. Scott Parker's not somebody I would want at my club. What he did to Bournemouth and those players after he took them up, to come out in an interview after the Liverpool game or before, whenever it was, and basically said there's no way that with this group are staying up. They're lacking in quality. I'm not going to be a part of this if we get relegated. Was disgraceful. Whether he thought it or not, you don't do it in that way. So it's a marriage made in heaven from that perspective because I dislike them both. But I also think he's not arrogant enough as a manager to not look at the opposition and try and exploit it a little bit. And I worry about us out wide. I think we've been exploited a little bit there. I wouldn't have done if Pickering was playing. I think we'd have played Pickering, we'd have played Beck on the left wing, and I think would have felt really comfortable with that. Centre of the park, I think we had the measure of them a little bit. I thought we had the better of the game. And I actually thought if anyone was going to win the game at Turf Moor, it was going to be us. Even when we'd gone down to 10 men, actually, we had the better of the chance. If you remember, ironically, it was Travis that you don't want in that position. We're going to miss him. You need somebody like that in our team. You need somebody like that in this game. But I do think our defenders will be more comfortable in their starting positions because they will sit a bit further back. We'll let Burnley pass it around and prat around with it at the back if they want. Move it as slow as you want. We know Trafford doesn't like any type of physicality. So does Gay start again? Rovers last time, we know, in terms of us being an aggressive team, we're not flying into challenges all the time, but we're aggressive in terms of we're not afraid to put their foot in. It needs a good ref. That's one thing because the game could be ruined, couldn't it, from either team? If they get somebody sent off or 2 or 3, I couldn't give a toss. But really, it does need a strong ref because somebody will put a silly challenge in early on. But what we tried to do last time, if you remember, was show Burnley, you're in a game here. We are in this game. And you remember that I went to the Q&A, didn't I? And Eustace said we wanted to let them know you're in a game and we are here to win. We're not here just to take part. Vyman had that early effort. We went into challenges. He played Gay because he fancied his chances against some of the centre halves, just to be physical, just to let them know you're not just going to have a nice easy game where you're popping it about when you want. Atmosphere will be good. There's going to be 24,000 Rovers fans in there. Some of them won't have been for a while. So are obviously turning up with intentions of a good game. Probably, let's be being honest, turning up with thinking this is the best chance of turning them over. But you've got to remember where they are. They are bumbling along. They've conceded 9 goals. I'm just looking at the result now. It's 80-odd minutes against Borough, 0-0. They've conceded 9 goals all season. They are where they are for a reason, and they have got quality. That said, I see no reason why we can't turn them over. I think it'll be a tight game. It will be a 1 or 2 goals in it. Providing the ref lets the game be what the game will be, we will be physical. Owen Beck will be going into those challenges. Hyam and Bat will be going and meeting that striker and just letting him know those little niggles that you need, you're in a game. But I worry about our midfield. I worry about us out wide, and I worry about our midfield. I think Tronstad's not looked... He's still a very good player, don't get me wrong, but he's not quite as solid with Baker because he's covering more ground, because Baker's natural instinct is not to sit in. It's not to smell danger and be the right side of his man and be goal side. It's to gamble and can I nick it? But look at the way we played against Leeds. I know we had Beck and Pickering on that side and we had Travis. But the Leeds game at home was a blueprint. We can do that as a team, and that could be us against Burnley. I would like to see us being quite aggressive against them, as in on the front foot as well. I don't want us to just sit back and let them have the ball, but just not excessively gambles. I just worry. I think we've got 2 or 3 players out of form at the minute. But flip side of that, Ohashi's just scored. Leonard's just scored. Britain's looking a good player at the moment. Not many better right backs in the Championship at the moment. Cantwell's fully fit. He's going to enjoy this game, you would imagine. Yeah, be a tasty one.
Yeah, I think it's an exciting one to look forward to now. Like I said previously, I've looked at these games and there's always that, pit in your stomach because of how well they've done over the past few years compared to us, just generally, league position-wise. I think there's going to be a lot said about the starting lineup when it comes out. It's going to prove who Eustace actually trusts in this squad. The striker position is going to be the interesting one for me because obviously Gay got sent off last time. He's not exactly been on form. He's not exactly looking the quality that you would want out of a striker going into the Burnley game. When he first played him, it was very early in his career. He was this big smiley guy that was bumbling around but being physical. And then that seems to have gone off a little bit the last few weeks. And yes, he got his goal, but he doesn't seem the same happy striker. So I think there's going to be a lot that we're going to pick at with this starting lineup of who we trust. But like you said, we've got injuries in key positions, and we've got players that are tired. He might not even have a choice. He might just have to put out the best he can, and it's going to be a tactical masterclass from him to get anything out of this game. It's a game that we're going to do. We're definitely going to put more content out for outside of the podcast for this game. So I don't really want to go into it too much right now because obviously it's the Leeds game first. But I'm looking forward to this one. I really am. The Leeds game, if we can go into that, come out of that with some relative, I don't know, like if I can be relatively happy with how we've played or the result in some way. I just want to come away with something out of that game where I feel positive about more than what we've done today with the whole game. If we can come out of that game with any kind of positivity and have a couple of days rest and go into that Burnley game at home, get Ewood rocking, and if we can get something in those first few minutes, it's just something, whether it's some good chances, we put them on the back foot just to keep the fans, really going for the club. for the team, then I'll be delighted. I think it's the best chance we've had in ages to get something out of the Dingles.
I agree. I felt much happier about it about 3 or 4 games ago. It's the injuries for me. I come back to it. That's what I'll be honest, that's what I was thinking about when it was the Millwall game. When the players went off, who they were, I thought, please don't be bad injuries. Do not be out for that game. Because I think they would have both been very key players in this game. And the fact that neither of them are fit has really swayed my thinking about the game. I think with those, I think we would have beaten them. I really do. Without them, I'm not so sure.
Terrible timing for this fixture and these injuries, isn't it?
Awful. Yeah. When we really could not cope with many injuries anyway, both of them are very difficult to replace. You know, Hedges is way off form at the minute, so Beck would have been the choice on the left-hand side. Pickering's just is so underrated. The way he slots into centre-half seamlessly, the way he defends his box, the way he defends out wide when he needs to, makes good decisions, knows when to sit in, particularly when Britain's going on the other side, doesn't leave us exposed ever. And then Travis has been Travis this season. Been one of the best centre midfielders in the Championship. Big losses for any team, but massive for us.
Yeah, the injuries, this is what we said after that Millwall game. You can accept a loss if you come away with it, you know, with just a loss. But to have the injuries on top, that was the killer. And then to have the game today where it just seemed so lackluster as well, it just felt... It's very easy to feel flat as a fan, and I don't want anyone to feel flat. We've got 2 great games coming up that we can all enjoy, and we trust Eustace that he's going to set them up and get the right players in the right positions. I can see some pretty big tactical changes coming in, but who knows? He might just trust the guys, and he might just say, "Do you know what? I trust you. Go out there, and heroes can be made." You never know. It could be Gay banging a hat trick at home, and he's the new hero of the club. We don't know, but there's definitely going to be more content coming out on this game in particular. But Mark, we'll move on to the question of the week that we put out, and I'll go back to it. It was, with Pears proving all the doubters wrong, what Rovers player from history proves you wrong during their time at Ewood? There's some interesting ones here. Chris Lambert put he always backed Pears. He even took a lot of you know what for it, but he said Lee Williamson proved him wrong. Not great, but we all know why we love him, and that is the truth. California Rover, Diaz for a season. I know that obviously you're very close to Brereton Diaz. I always knew that he was, for me, I always felt like he just was never going to be that good for us. He had that one great season, and I'll be honest, I called that he wasn't actually going to do anything after leaving us, and there's people saying that he's not necessarily the greatest Premier League footballer ever, but other ones, Kevin Moran and Dave Wagstaff, Stephen Reed, Hayden's put, I think Gay has the potential to prove me wrong. People saying Tim Sherwood when he first joined.
Yeah, he did. He got pelters, didn't he?
Yeah, Richard Kilshaw, Chris Samba. I thought first time I saw Chris Samba play, I thought he was a walking red card. What about yourself? Was there any from you?
There will be. I mean, I do remember the likes of Sherwood. He was not for Blackburn fans, wasn't Sherwood. I mean, even back then, nobody wore white boots. Nobody had long hair. We don't particularly like Southerners anyway. You're in the Midlands, Mike. You're all right. But the old soft Southern pansies and all that kind of stuff used to come out. And Sherwood used to come on the pitch, didn't he, and strut around and knock the ball 5 yards. But what a player he was. Yeah, I think. I mean, I quite liked it when I can't remember who it was that put it, but somebody put about who did they put that one of the players surprised them because they thought they were going to be good. Kevin
that
Davis.
Was going to be the one. Yeah, that was going to be how I finished it. My favourite was John Lee.
Yeah.
But Kevin Davis proved me wrong. I thought it'd be a good signing. I thought that was so funny.
I know. And I can remember more of them, really, that I thought, oh, he's gonna set the world alight. Do you know what? I'm going to go a bit obscure just to try and be a bit... I mentioned about Andre Aurier because his first game was appalling. He looked like he was never going to adapt to the Premier League, and he did. But I'm going to say David Dunn. And I'm going to say David Dunn for the second time round because he'd left Rovers, hadn't he, with falling out with Souness, and people took sides. But we talked about Dunny being... there was a spell where he was England under-21 captain ahead of a team that had Frank Lampard in it. Had Joe Cole in it. Had people like Gary Cahill, I think, John Terry in it. Such a good 21s team. And he didn't fulfill his potential. So when he came back, he'd just gone to Birmingham for £5 million and kind of had to eat a bit of humble pie in that you're not the world beater you think you are without the effort. And he was coming back into our team under Hughes, and I thought, I don't know where he's going to fit. We played quite a rigid 4-4-2. We had Bentley on the right wing, Pedersen on the left. We had people like Stephen Reed and Savage with two guys sprinkled, and I thought, we are not a team. We're a team now. We're not a team, though, that can fit around one individual. And Dunny's too injured too often to build his team around him, so then it all have to fall apart again when he's then out for 6 weeks. And actually, he got himself right into that team. He got himself to be a real key cog in that team and went on to play for us for, 36, 37 when he retired, and played a lot of games and played some really key games. Obviously, bagged against the Dingles numerous times, but became somebody we could really rely on and be a talisman. And I wanted him to be a talisman. He was a local hero. He had that little swagger about him. He had a cheekiness. He scored goals in Division 1. He showed the quality he had, but I just thought, you're never going to live up to this. You're always injured. There's rumours about you always going out. And I'm going to say him because I just thought it is not going to work him coming back. And to be fair, I wouldn't say he had as good a spell because he won a Worthington Cup and promotion first time and got in the England squad. But he had a bloody good second spell at the club, didn't he? So I'm going to say him.
So mine was Schmodix.
Yeah,
I felt like he didn't necessarily, in fact, as a couple of people said, agreed with that. So Rovers 1875 has said Schmodix as well. For me, he came in, he did okay. For us, it was quite a lot of money at the time because it wasn't exactly the normal freeze and £500,000 fine. Transfer funds. So yeah, for me it was Schmodix. I just and we started to call him out, saying he needed to do more. He needed to add assists and creativity. And then we called it. And you yourself at the start of last season, you said you wanted to see Schmodix add in more goals, and by God, he did that. And whilst
Yeah.
I didn't think that he would necessarily. I mean, no one thought he'd get those kind of goals. You'd be crazy if you think that. But to get all them goals, I even said that when he moved on from us, I didn't think he would do that great. It was like a one-season wonder. But he's doing okay still. Okay, he's not playing the same role. But yeah, it was Schmodix for me. He proved me wrong because I was ready to move on from him. And next year, I might be saying that it's Travis. I was completely done with Travis. I'd given up on him completely, and he's proving me wrong week in, week out. And he's definitely going to be one next season to talk about. But when we say about proving us wrong, we've said before, we talk about the here and now, and no one would ever say that your Pears, your Travises, and so on and so forth. We're going to be world beaters and playing like they are now for us. No one ever thought that Schmodix would do what he did. So whilst we called it, it's not like, we were slating them and saying that they shouldn't be, professional footballers. We just said they weren't playing at the level we wanted them to, and by God, they are now. So yes, it was a nice one for that, and a lot of people added a lot of comments to it, so we appreciate that. But Mark, we are into injury time. It's the 93rd minute of the podcast, and we haven't got time for the mailbag today. Thanks everyone putting it in. We are storing them for a future one. But Mark, it's been great to talk to you for this podcast. Next week, are we going to be positive? Are we going to have positive things to talk about? ourselves and retweeting that out, but with a little bit of an edit. But so far in the 12 days of Christmas, our true love has only given us 1 point. We have 6 more to play for, and we all hope they rebound to get all of them. As we leave 2024, we hope that 2025 starts off with a bang. But until then, we hope you had a great Christmas. You have a fantastic New Year's Eve, and we'll see you on the other side. Have a great week.